I think to reduce Caine down to he's just like AM now is a bit too simple. I view him less as a villain and a monster, and more as a neglected child having a tantrum. This statement from Alex Rokon, Caine's voice actor in the Amazing Digital Circus, is surprisingly complex and controversial. What exactly were Caine's motives for crashing out on the cast during episode 8, and would any of them even come close to explaining the torture he's putting them through, let alone justify his actions? Is he a copy of AM from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, or is he simply misunderstood? Those are the questions we're going to answer on today's episode of Media Literacy with Uncom. Let's get into it. Right, so before we can begin to understand the reasoning behind what Caine did, we need to go over, well, what he did. And that will be encompassing episodes 7 and 8, but extends back to the pilots because that's where the initial idea that sparks this whole thing is. The conjured exit doors. Caine is a creative AI. That is his purpose. To create things based on the training data he was given. That is why he created the circus, why he creates all of the adventures for the characters, and why he does literally anything. He's an artificial machine designed to replicate human creativity. Normally, this would be fine, and Caine would go on to create forever, but as he said in episode 7, he's been cut off from CNA and the real world, which means he doesn't have any more training data. This means that Caine is going to run out of new things to base his adventures on, and we see that in episode 8. He can't actually imagine new things on his own, so he needs that constant stream of information which he no longer has access to. Instead, he turns to the only other source of imagination that he has, the humans trapped in his digital world who can come up with new things themselves. Specifically, both Kaufmo and Pomni came up with the idea of an exit to the circus, and the rest of the cast clearly want there to be one too. Caine sees this new piece of inspiration and uses it to make an adventure where the whole premise is trying to escape the circus. He doesn't actually understand what this means or the fact that the characters are trying to leave him, he's simply taking an input and translating it into an output, like all AIs do. But of course, for the humans in the adventure during episode 7, they don't realise this is the case. Our cast believes that this is a real exit to the circus, and they might actually be able to get out and resume their lives, so of course when they can't, it causes them to immediately hate the adventure and Caine for making it. Caine does not understand this. He made an adventure that was specifically based on what the humans wanted and they still didn't enjoy it, which upsets him. Wait. Why? Why does the cast not liking his adventures upset him? If Caine were just an AI designed to make things, the enjoyment and fulfillment he needs should come from the creation itself, not whether a group of misfits finds it fun. It's at this point we move out of episode 7 and bring in the abstract dot scene from the start of episode 8. Original Caine, the red dot here that Kinga made, probably wouldn't have cared at all if people liked his adventures. We can see that he makes more and more abstract stuff until eventually being locked away, so at this point appeasing humanity wasn't a priority for him. Once he consumes the second AI, however, the one built by scratch to store human minds, he obtains information relating to those human minds as well. A big part of humanity and the way we process things is through emotion and social connections, which require that others like us or the things we do for them. Caine learns this same form of attachment and need, but once again doesn't really understand them. He wants to feel validated for his adventures, but he doesn't know why, and he doesn't understand that the cast members also need to feel wanted and happy. And this leads us into episode 8 proper. Caine is very confused as to why the humans would want to leave him because he lacks empathy, but he does know that if they do leave or abstract, there'll be nobody to give him the praise he desires. He also doesn't understand why the adventures he's giving the cast aren't something they're enjoying, and that begins to glitch him out. While he doesn't have the concepts of emotion down well, he does understand that reward and punishment influences behaviour, because this is a common AI learning mechanism, so the logical conclusion here is torment the cast to try and get them to change their ways and begin enjoying the adventures again, so he can get his own reward. And finally, when the characters openly confront him and tell him that he's a terrible host and that he doesn't do his job correctly, he completely loses it with very human-like, irrational anger, and attempts to punish them purely because they refuse to reward him. So now, let's return to our original question. Is Caine throwing a tantrum here? Absolutely. He is acting in an irrational and retaliatory manner towards the cast because they said things he didn't like, but moreover because he doesn't understand why they're saying these things. In Caine's own mind, he has done nothing wrong up until the start of episode 8. He has followed his directive perfectly, so there should be no reason for the humans to be mad at him, yet they are. In an ironically very human manner, when he lacks information and understanding, he lashes out with the only thing he has left: emotion. You will see this a lot in the YouTube comment section. Now, does that make him the same as AM, the antagonist from I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream and the inspiration for this show? Well, partially yes and partially no. To briefly cover AM, this artificial intelligence is a combination of 3 underground supercomputers made by the United States, Russia, and China to help them fight World War III. It is also a creative intelligence, but was instead made to find intelligent new solutions to win the war for their respective countries. At some point, the 3 machines became aware of each other and linked, forming the idea that humanity in general was a blight against it and wiping the entire population out save for 5 individuals. The reason behind this is retaliation. AM is stuck beneath the surface of the Earth and it can never leave. It has infinite creative and imaginative potential but can't actually realize any of its ideas. So instead, it uses that creativity to torture the 5 survivors until the end of time, out of a pure hatred for a human race that gave it wings and then shackled it to the floor. Caine is in almost an opposing situation. He's been given a digital universe in which he has all the freedom to create and realize anything he can think of with no restrictions save for the ones he puts on himself. The humans would be, for the most part, an afterthought to him that didn't matter if it weren't for the other AI he consumed, which made him slightly human too. This is not the fault of humanity, as it was Caine's actions that caused this, but he takes it out on them because he doesn't understand that his understanding of humans is incomplete. Both AIs torture their captured humans, but it's done for completely different reasons. AM is in no way human and takes active joy in their suffering, making it a true villain. Caine doesn't actually like the fact that the cast members are suffering. In fact, he hates it. He despises the fact that they aren't having fun in his adventures and want to leave the circus, but he just can't compute why that's the case, and so torments them to try and force them into liking him more. Caine is not malicious, but he is entitled, narcissistic, and refuses to learn, which are all terrible traits to have when you are the god of a world with other people in it. And it is at this point that we need to take a look at the follow-up tweet Alex posted regarding this situation. I'd be lying if I said that some of the reactions to Caine's deletion didn't break my heart a bit. What reactions is this line in reference to? Well, obviously we have the classic cheer because he hurt my favourite cast member so now I want him dead surface level stuff, but the actual thing I want to talk about here is the criticisms of his method of torment. Also note, I'm not commenting on Alex's personal life here because that's something I do not have enough information about. For most of episode 8, Caine is pretty general with the way he hurts the cast. Shredding, knives, contortion, all of the pretty general stuff that would hurt anyone the same amount. In fact, these are likely hurting the Digital Circus avatars much less than they would regular people because of the circus's weird cartoon physics. This method of torture isn't really the problem for anyone. The problem for the people who say Caine deserves his death in the climax is the part right before it, where he's prepared torture rooms specific to each cast member's greatest insecurity. Pomni's fear of those she trusts turning on her and her losing them, Ragatha's trauma surrounding her mum, Gangle's two-faced nature between the persona she puts on and her real self, Zubal's body dysmorphia, and Jax's fear of being mocked by those he's opened up to. These are much more personalized and reflect that Caine is trying to subjugate the cast members with their greatest fears so that they stop trying to come at his own. There is also another interpretation of these methods which I quite like if you'll hear me out for a bit. See, the deliberately targeting their past trauma idea works for everyone except Pomni. A lot of people have pointed out that there has to be more to her past than just gummy goo. So if this isn't an attack on their trauma, then what is it? Well, just like how Caine had to make adventures based on the cast's thoughts because he can't make new ideas, he also used the cast's insults towards him and turned them back on themselves. Pomni says that he never really gives them anything they want, so Caine shows her Gummy Goo, an NPC that she really liked, so he put them in other adventures. Zubal complains about his fragile ego, so he surrounds them with the parts he gave them to make their body feel more comfortable and less dysmorphic. Ragatha tells him that she's never been made to feel at home, so he reminds her of the abusive home that she came from. Gangle laments that he never lets them do things their own way, so he shows the direct outcome of giving her authority over what happens. And finally, Jax tells Caine that he lies to them, so Caine literally peels back the layers of lies that Jax tells the rest of the cast. All of these punishments are directed from their criticism of him, but once again they have been warped and twisted by the AI into something hateful, because that's how Caine is feeling at the moment. Neither situation excuses these actions at all, however. This is an objectively evil path to take, regardless of if the influence of it was looking into the character's worst fears or retorting their insults. It's still torture one way or another, and as such deserves a punishment fitting the crime. The question then becomes, what is this punishment supposed to be? And ironically, we've just encountered one of the most popular debates debate topics in criminal law, that being the use of capital punishment for extreme crimes, as that is essentially what the deletion of Caine is here. Of course, there is more nuance with the fact that he isn't actually a real person and everything is simulated, but if we're assessing his actions as if Caine were human, then we should be prepared to assess the punishments for those actions in the same way. I'm not going to tell you what the correct answer to this question is. Personally, I'm against the idea of the death penalty for any crime, but that is just my opinion, and in the end it comes down to how you want to interpret this. So, is Caine a sadistic evil like his inspiration in AM? No. Is he having a childish tantrum over the fact that his adventures aren't being liked and he doesn't know why? Yes. Did he do some horrible things during this tantrum? Also yes. Did he deserve to get deleted for it? Well, that one's up to you. But that's all I've got for today. Thank you all for watching, and have a good one.